One of the hardest things for people to remember is that we're building integration in reverse. And so if you're trying to take the derivative of something, you have all kinds of rules that you can use for now. That you can use for derivatives. But the only one we have for integrals is the power rule, and it only works on a single term at a time. So you're going to have to do a lot of rewriting for now. And I'll go ahead and tell you there is no product rule and there is no quotient rule for integration. So there just aren't. So you will always be forced in that case to distribute it out. So let's look at the integral of 1 over x cubed. If I were going to take that derivative, I would need to bring the x up to the top. And that's the same thing you need to do if you're going to take the integral. You need to rewrite it as 1x to the negative 3, and then you can just apply the power rule to it. Add 1 to the power, divide by the new power.
-2.
So if we divide by -2, that's the same as multiplying by negative 1/2. Add the indefinite constants, and then we're going to need to clean it up. So that will become negative 1 over 2x squared. Because the x has to drop down into the denominator with the 2. And obviously it's a little harder to check those, because to check this, we would actually check it from here. So it's going to be easier if you want to check it from there. We have -2 times negative 1/2 is positive 1, x to the negative 3, or 1 over x cubed. So just be careful when you check them. It's easy to kind of get yourself turned around. Any questions about this guy? You're good? Yes? I don't know if you remember, but when I first gave you this problem to take the derivative of, it did not go well. So hopefully it'll go a little better this go round. If you are dividing something by a monomial, as is this case, where we have 2x squared minus x minus 1 all over the square root of x, you have to split that up into 3 separate terms in order to be able to do the integral. Make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So basically what you're going to have to do, and this works because this is a monomial, you're going to split it into 2x squared over, and I'm going to write that as x to the 1/2, minus 1x over x to the 1/2, minus 1 over x to the 1/2. So basically what you're going to do is you're going to undo the common denominator. That's the first step you need to understand. It has to be split into 3 separate terms, and all 3 of them have to be divided by the square root of x. And you can do that because there's a monomial in the denominator. Then you subtract your exponents. So what is 2 minus 1/2?
3/2.
So we have 2x to the 3/2 minus, what will that become? X to the 1/2 minus x to the negative 1/2. So all of that so far, we haven't done any calculus. We're just trying to rewrite it as 3 separate terms to a power. Any questions? Remember that when we divide, we subtract our exponents. And for this one, even though there was nothing to subtract from, we want to bring him up to the top. So we made him negative 1/2. Now we're just going to go through and we're going to do the power rule to each of those. So for the first one, I have 2x to the 3/2, and that will become 2x to the 5/2, divided by 5/2, or multiplied by 2/5. So I'm going to put a 2/5 out here. Minus, this will become x to the 3/2, and that will become a 2/3. So dividing by 3/2 is the same as multiplying by 2/3. Be careful with your fractions. And finally, for this one, if I add 1 to the power, I get x to the positive 1/2. Right, you guys? X to the positive 1/2. Divided by 1/2 is the same as multiplying by 2 over 1. Plus a c on the end. And we have 4/5. X to the 5/2 minus 2/3. X to the 3/2 minus 2x to the 1/2 plus c. And I just kind of stopped there, but if we want, we could turn them back into square roots. Would you like me to do that?
No.
You guys are pretty happy? I don't know how your book would do that. Also, I'm going to warn you, actually I am going to show you because I'm going to warn you of something I saw on Calc Chat that just kind of like, I don't know why they would do it, but I want to show you just in case, okay? All right, so if I change this back to square roots, do you guys understand that that would be 4/5 square root of x to the 5th minus 2/3 square root of x cubed minus 2 square roots of x plus c. Are you guys okay with that?
Yeah.
So that's another acceptable answer. All right, well, then I saw that sometimes the back of your book will do this. They will simplify these guys and say that that is x squared square root of x. Do you guys understand that? You can take 2 x's out.
Yeah.
Okay? Hang on. And this is 2/3 x square root of x minus 2 square root of x. But they won't stop there. They will factor a square root of x out. Yeah, it took me a while to realize what they were doing.
But how can you factor out a square root of x?
Watch, I'll show you. Hang on. 4/5 x squared, which it actually is prettier, I think. 2/3 x minus 2, and they'll put the plus c here. I don't care for that because I don't like to have parentheses and then addition or subtraction outside of that, which is why I'll just never do it. But understand that sometimes the back of your book in Calc Chat, they're going to go a little too far. In fact, they may even get a common denominator of 15 at this point. So there's all kinds of things they could do. I'm pretty happy here or here, but just don't freak out. Check the answer and see if you distribute it out if you have what you got, and then you should be okay because you do not have to go that far for me. And I want you guys to see now if you can figure out this one by yourself. Okay, so for this example, we have the integral of 3x plus 5 times 2x minus 9 with respect to x. And since we don't have a product rule for integration, we do need to boil that out before we start. So this will give us what? 6x squared minus 17x minus 45. So we distributed those parentheses out, and now that we have 3 individual terms, we will just apply the power rule to each of them. So we will add 1 to the power. 6x cubed divided by the new power. So do we all agree that's just 2x cubed? So 2x cubed minus 17x to the 2 divided by
2.
So that won't simplify. Minus 45 what?
X.
45x plus, do not leave off the constant. Then of course you could check it by taking the derivative, and then it should factor back to the original once you're done. Any questions? Great. Well then see if you can figure this one out. So for this one, we need to distribute the x, and we need to change it to exponential form. So what is x times square root of x?
3/2.
Right, because that's an understood 1 and that's a 1/2, and we add them. So we're starting with x to the 3/2 minus 3x to the 1, and we're going to go with respect to x. Is that okay?
Yes.
All right. Now we're going to do our power rule. That will become x to the 5/2 divided by 5/2 or multiplied by 2/5 minus 3x squared divided by
2.
so minus 3/2 x squared plus c, and you could stop there. Or you could change it to square root of x to the 5th minus 3/2 x squared plus c. So either of those would be perfectly acceptable. How many of you guys got it? Excellent. One more, okay? One more. By the way, which one of these would be easier to check it from?
The first one.
Yeah, it's going to be easier to check from here because it's already in exponential form. Does that make sense, you guys? So, you know, it's kind of nice to keep your work neat and organized, because sometimes if you're going back and checking, you may not want to use the final answer to check it. You may want to go one up above it. All right. What am I going to have to do to this one before I can integrate it? We don't have a chain rule.
We have full foil.
Yeah, you have to get rid of the parentheses squared. Like, you can't have a square outside of a parentheses like that. So the first thing we're going to have to do is distribute it out. Or you could just use square double square, right? So we have the integral of 2x minus 3 quantity squared, which will distribute out to 4x squared minus 12x plus 9 with respect to x. And then you just do each one separately. So just don't forget that we don't have a chain rule, we don't or anything yet. There actually is some sort of chain rule for integration, just not product and quotient rule, and I will show you guys that in section 4.5. Add 1 to the power. 4/3 x cubed. Divide by the new power. Let's see. So this one will become what? Negative 6x squared. Good. Plus.
C.
And that one could easily be checked out because there are not even any fractional exponents. So for your assignment, I want you guys to go ahead,
And like
seems to be missing, and start working on what's on your syllabus for part 1, because you don't want to wait until we start adding word problems into it. So make sure you're comfortable with just the basics before next time, because we'll do part 2 of this section next time.